And and let me show you what I did to Billy. He's my dog. Oh my god. I was like, okay, I told my friend at work, and I told my friends at college. I said, I'm thinking of getting Billy some trousers and dressing him up like a human to see how he feels. So I decided to do that, and I'm a very funny person. Like, some people say, oh, don't do that, you know, and I do it because I think, oh, let me see what it looks like or how he would feel wearing it. And I put him in these jeans that I had from my teddy bear. I named the teddy bear called Ashley. My friend got it for me for my birthday. No, for Christmas. My friend got me the teddy bear for Christmas, and then I bought my own clothes for it. It's like a Build-A-Bear, you know, and the Build-A-Bear's name is called Ashley. Ashley actually sleeps in my dog's bed. So obviously Ashley no longer wears clothes anymore. Ashley has a t-shirt and she has trousers. She used to have shoes. Billy's chewed up the shoe, so there's no shoes anymore. But Ashley has trousers and a t-shirt. Billy is a very small dog. Well, he's a small dog, but he's not a very big dog. He's not toy size. He's like a medium. He's like a full size terrier kind of dog, but he's not a big terrier. He's quite small. Because he's a rare breed, it's hard to tell what he is really. So, you know, there's toy's like a really small dog. So sometimes when we go out, we see toy dogs and it's smaller than Billy, but they're older than Billy. So that's a toy dog. Well, Billy's not a toy dog. So Billy goes, he's like, yeah. And I'm like to my friend, I swear I'm going to put clothes on my dog. So I put this on TikTok, and this was Saturday after my shift at work. I was like, okay, I'll come home. I was like, okay, let me put some clothes on him. I thought this would get more views. It didn't. I think TikTok doxed me here. They just didn't give me enough views. But here, show mommy your trousers. Show mommy your trousers. Stop fighting me. Show mommy. Billy got so angry. No, he liked, when I put it on, he was happy to put them on, you know, it didn't hurt him. He kind of just really liked having, because he likes clothes. He likes feeling human. I don't know why, he really likes feeling human. So I put the trousers on him. He doesn't scream out or anything. He just puts them on, you know what I mean? And then he's walking around in there, and I couldn't stop smiling. I couldn't stop laughing. So I take before this happened, before I filmed it, I was laughing hysterically. And he got embarrassed. He tried to put himself next to my bed, and I was like, Billy, just show everyone your trousers. So he turns around and shows his trousers off. Then when he gets embarrassed, he starts biting you. He's he's like a little kid. He bites you when he's embarrassed. Show me your trousers. Show me your trousers. You can see his teeth. He smile. He's actually so happy. Let's go. Look, he's like, huh? Yeah. He's tilting his head to the side, because in his head it's like, oh, you wear trousers, so why can't I? But it wasn't even that they were weird on him. It was the fact that the trousers looked so adorable on Billy that I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna so he has a pair of trousers now. Come on. And the thing is, when he walked, he looked like an actual boy. He walks like a boy. So I know that if he ever went down the street, people would just start smiling. I wanted to do it, but because he's a dog, he needs to wee, and I don't know how this is gonna work. He's gonna have to wear some special I don't know, diaper on. I just feel really sad doing that to him. I'll do it for a short period of time, but I don't know, because I feel like his penis is up there though, so he can aim to wee. But yeah, I put his trousers on and he ran to the bed. He ran to his bed. Show mommy your trousers. Show mum your trousers. And the thing is, he actually tried to show me the trousers. Like, he knew what I was talking about. Like, I've never seen him, like, the way he turned around, he knew what I was talking about when I said, show me your trousers. Show mommy your trousers. He literally knew what I was talking about. Stop fighting me. Show mommy your trousers. Show mommy your trousers. Like, he thinks they're cool, and I know I shouldn't be laughing at him because he thinks they're really cool. Like, he's the type of dog, like, when he finds things cool and I'm laughing, he thinks, oh, like, you just act mature, you know. He's done this before, like when he was scooting down, like when he had poo on his bum, that's when he gets nervous. Like, he gets very embarrassed about that, you know. Like,
a warning of how a modern Western society will collapse. And today, this warning is more important than ever, because the movie accurately predicts how revolution will come about in the West. And judging by recent events, we may be much closer than we thought. To see what I mean, Joker gives us 4 clear stages of how modern society collapses, and what will be behind a major revolution in the West. The first stage comes when a society is no longer connected, when communities are destroyed and loneliness is the norm. And we see this in the first section of the movie. The opening shot of Joker starts with a mirrored reflection of our protagonist, Arthur. From the looking glass, we see a sympathetic man displaying a sense of sadness and vulnerability. A man who has to put on a public mask to blend in as best he can to the society that he lives in. And the movie shows us why Arthur needs to do this by giving us a window into his sad life. You see,
do you know what? That's what I actually think is the biggest thing about life. And I think the Joker actually is about showing you the negatives about how life can really bring one person down, and by bringing that one person down, it can affect loads of other people, and people don't understand how serious it is that someone living a really sad life, it does affect you. It affects everything you do. It affects how you sleep, how you go and about your day, because you don't know that the man you just walked past while he got beaten up, you don't know that tomorrow he could be like, and he might not be successful or anything, but he might be a big symbol of what you may go through. You may end up being beaten up by the same group of people. And it's the fact that the Joker in that video, in that movie, he actually got beaten up, and he chased after the people who stole the board from him, and he was advertising for his shop that he was working at. No one bothered to help him with those boys. Like, normally you would like see people call the police, or, you know, hey, give it back to him, come back here, boys. You would hear someone kind of help out. Where with him, he did not get the help he needed. He was kind of ignored, and he chased and chased and chased after them and got beaten up in the alleyway, just for getting something that was part of the company's property.
it's a mirror of life in Western megacities, and this is having a significant impact on Arthur's psychology. To understand this properly, we need to consider a concept called...
The thing is with Western society, it's all, especially capitalist society, it's all about all for one for all. Like, it's all kind of like, you know, I don't care about anyone else but myself kind of mentality. It's like, well, if I'm gonna have to do what I have to do to live and survive, why should I care about the person next to me? But you shouldn't feel like that. You should feel like, oh, you know, it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't really be like, oh, okay, well, what should I do? Like, the thing with Arthur, he never asked for money. He just simply asked for the respect that he needed while he was working. So it was kind of like a lot of things to show you that a lot of people don't see in the Western world, that it's not about going to other countries and helping other people from other countries, which is, it is good that you do that, but it's also about helping the people around you too. It's about putting yourself out there to help people who you see are struggling, because you can't ignore them, because there's going through something really hard. So you need to put your foot down and say, well, actually, I didn't like how you treated that person over there. I didn't like how those boys chased after him and no one decided to help him. So I'm going to help him out myself, you know?
called the looking glass self, a sociological term that describes how a person's perception of themselves come from how they think other people view them. This develops in a 3-step process that begins incredibly early.
So with the looking glass self, it could be like looking at a mirror. I would use this as like looking at a mirror, but this is the thing with mirrors, you can see yourself, but imagine you're looking at a mirror and you are looking at the way other people may see you. So you're thinking about all the ways that you may be seen by other people. You might be seen as stupid, quirky, out of ordinary, out of place. I do it sometimes. Sometimes I look at myself, I'm like, that lady over there who walked past me may think I'm crazy or think I'm weird or think I'm unusual. And that's how the looking glass self is. It's like when you're looking at yourself through a glass and it's like a distorted image because you're looking, it's kind of like when you look at yourself through let's say, a drinking glass and you look smaller in the drinking glass, but you're actually bigger. That is basically it. It's like this distorted image where you're looking at yourself and you think, I look really weird in that. I look like kind of weird. I look creepy. But then when other people look at you, they're kind of like, well, I don't know. They might not see anything. They might not notice anything. They might not really care. But if I was to look at Arthur on the street and walk past him, I cannot lie and say that I wouldn't have thought that Arthur was creepy. I would have thought he was weird. I would have thought he was weird and unusual. I would have thought he was...
in life. As children, we slowly tap into and notice how other people react to our behavior. Those reactions are then attributed to judgments about how we act. And lastly, an individual then forms a self-image in line with how they think others are judging them. Charles Cooley, the sociologist who first coined the term, thought that this process of socialization was what made people human. But in Joker, the whole idea of the looking glass self has been thrown on its head. Arthur's self-image is so terrible. Self is terrible. And this creates a positive...
Especially when you are being treated badly by other people around you. Let's say you are being abused by people, like people abusing you or bullying you or harassing you or sexually assaulting you. You may feel like there's something wrong with you, but it may not be something wrong with you exactly, because there is nothing wrong with you. You may think, oh, there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm a bad person. That's why I'm being treated this way. But you should never really do that, because that doesn't justify how people treat you. It's never okay to abuse someone. But because your brain naturally, uses that feedback, because we have a positive feedback and we have a negative feedback of our brains and our bodies, we often respond to issues in a positive way or a negative way. So let's say someone does something negative to us, we often analyze that situation, which we do. Like the positive feedback to that negative situation that we could have done is analyze the situation, see what we could have done better, see what makes us unusual, see what we could have, done to make ourselves feel safer. And that is good for some cases, but that is also bad for many, because it doesn't justify how you felt or how that person made you feel. It actually does not justify anything at all. It's because that person really felt like they could do that to you that day. And then a positive feedback, like someone giving you a positive feedback and you responding negatively, it could be like, someone tells you your hair looks nice and you go, oh, you don't have to always tell me that. Like shouting back at them and saying, you don't have to always tell me that my hair looks nice. I know it looks better than yours. That's a negative feedback, because you didn't acknowledge that the person was genuinely being kind to you enough to say that you look really nice today,
feedback loop, where every time someone treats Arthur poorly, he mistakenly believes that he deserves it. And a negative self-image like this will only lead to a compounding hatred of oneself. And Joker is just...
If you keep on looking at yourself and saying, oh, I should have done this better. Maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that, maybe if I correct this, maybe if I correct that. If you keep on doing that, you will begin to hate yourself, because that's what you think people hate about you. And you will never see the positive, the best things about yourself. and quickly you will develop eating disorders, quickly you will develop anxiety, you will develop depression very fast, and you will probably get social anxieties and different, agoraphobias, because you won't want to be around people, because you think that you being around people is making everyone feel uncomfortable, like you're going to ruin it for people, that you're going to hurt people, that you're going to embarrass everyone around you. And I feel like that often, but when I do, it's like I don't want to be around people. I often just go, you know what, if I have to be around people, I'll only be around people for a short period of time. I would rather sit by myself or sit with people I know. And when I'm with my friends that I know, I often like to walk away or have my own time to myself. So it's quite funny.
Just so popular because there are millions of men like Arthur in our world today. Because our entire culture is creating a breeding ground for loneliness, despair, mental illness, where we're bathed in...
There's a breathing ground because obviously people are so stuck on online situations. Often people don't want to talk to people face to face. I actually had this conversation with my friend online. I said to them, like, I always notice this thing when I'm like with my friends or family, especially people who are older than me, like adults, and when I see people in like the bus or something, they treat their phone like it's like they trust their phone more than they actually trust the person being there presently and talking to the person. And it was kind of funny because you shouldn't ever have so much trust in your phone. Your phone is kind of like a way of communicating, but people trust their phone so much that they put all their energy and their time in their technology. So like another example is like telling someone on the phone something really personal about someone else and expecting that not to spread, when you know that someone could be on the other side of the line and could hear what you just said. You should be careful about what you say on the phone. That is one of the biggest things that I've always said to people. Like, you should be really careful what you say on the phone. You might think, oh, but I'm just like talking about someone else's business. But if you talk about someone else's business, always be prepared for people to come
atomizing
back.
celebrity or all.
Always be prepared for people to come back and bite you on the bum. Always be prepared for people to smack you about on that situation, because some people can hear you and they might not be there presently, but someone might be on the other side of someone else's phone and may hear what you said. So why do you trust the phone that you're using to communicate and say private things about yourself? You know, like, you should be really cautious about what you're saying on the phone, on the internet, because sometimes people are nasty and they do tell other people and they're snarky.
Cost nihilism. A society that has rebuked lonely, despairing young men into thinking they're worthless, angry freaks who deserve nothing but contempt. The hordes of castigated men is symptomatic of a very deep problem in our society. This is shown in the next scene, where Arthur talks to his therapist and asks,
"Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?"
But unfortunately, talking to a therapist doesn't seem to be helping his mental health a whole lot. So instead, he tries to get something out of the session, but Arthur envisions sitting amongst the crowd and shouting out to Murray, who asks him to stand up. He starts talking about taking care of his sick mother, all to hear inappropriate chuckles coming from the audience. However,
and this is the thing, you hyperfixate. So for me, I hyperfixate on like a show that I was watching, and I'll be like, oh, like I would imagine myself in that show to escape from the reality that you're in. So that's what normally people do when they're in a situation when they're really sad or really scared. They hyperfixate on this and they become incredibly obsessed with that situation. So they think, oh, maybe if I went on the show and I spoke to Whoopi Goldberg and she told me her abusive childhood, and I told her about mine, and we joked about it, and she took me under her wing and we hung out, and she took me to red carpets and we hung out because she knew that I was suffering too. That's kind of it. Like, that's why you feel like, oh, I'm not alone. But then you realize that this person is not real. This is what you think he would say to you. If you could change anything, if you could ask him to say something, you would want him to say that to you.
Murray immediately settles them down and relates to Arthur's story by talking about how his father left him as a child.
I lived with my mother before I made it, just me and her. I'm that kid whose father went out for a pack of cigarettes, and he never came back.
I love my Google Pixel 8 Pro. Got a random ingredient? Circle to search will help you find a dish to make and so much more.
There's a little known side hustle that I'm doing myself that earns me a very healthy 6-figure.
Loneliness and negativity that this creates in both the individual and the society leads to mass resentment. But what is resentment if not a lack of good communication? Our society has ignored Arthur and millions of men like him, but beyond that, the lines of communication have broken down completely. There's no outlet for men like Arthur. There's nothing left for them to turn to. In Michel Foucault's book, Madness and Civilization, he paints a picture that's strikingly similar to what we've discussed. He states that madness or mental illness isn't purely biological or a chemical problem, but is instead deemed so by the society of the time. Like in our age of cancel culture.
I feel like that is kind of true. I feel like due to the society at the time that we live in, or the country, the culture that we live in, we have ideas of what we think well is or healthy is. And often healthy is being seen as very pretty or being very slim in our society now. But if you were to see the society that we lived in years ago, healthy was eating well. Healthy was being pale, and not going out in the sun. But then vitamin D is really good now. So it's kind of like healthiness changes with the society that we live in. And often people are so quick to hate on people that they don't see as normal or with society as well. So I feel like his idea is true, that if society's the only reason why mental illness is around is because we publicly label it and we publicly shame other people for having those illnesses, and we differentiate them from others. If we didn't differentiate people from others, I think we would be more happy. I think we would know what society was. I think we would kind of feel, comfortable around other people and be able to help other people instead of ignore them. And I think there's a big thing about cancel culture as well, which he is going to get into, is as soon as you do something really weird or unusual, or if someone doesn't like it, or a group of people have seen you as doing something really unusual or out of order, they've seen you go against someone who's done something to you and they don't agree with it as a community, they can quickly cancel you in terms of, stop supporting you and moving away from you and telling people that you're terrible. And I think that's also a really bad way of dealing with that, because that means isolating people from the society that you generally live in and saying, well, you did one bad thing, so now we all hate you, which is not true.
Culture, where we've been taught that people who think differently are a danger to society and that they must be ostracized and bullied into silence. You see,
notice how these two people, so Kanye West is a primary example of someone who's had an episode in public. Eminem is also another person who had an episode in public. People like people like Britney Spears, as soon as they have meltdowns or episodes in public, they quickly go on cancel culture. People go, oh, she was so weird. Why did she just do that? They go from going, wow, her music was so smashing. She's just, when she released Toxic, I was damn, she's gone from toxic to, she's kind of creepy. She kind of is a bit sexual. When, okay, she is in her music, but she's generally a really down to earth person. She's hardworking, she puts the hours in, so why should that matter if she has a nervous breakdown? But they're quick to go, oh, she did that one bad thing, and they cancel her so fast. It's as soon as you do something unusual or out of ordinary, and you start doing things that other people don't like, and you start stepping the mark, people are quick to cancel you.
There's numerous factors contributing to how a society perceives and labels individuals as mentally ill. But for Foucault, this has led to an overly simplistic view.
And you know what it is as well? It's the idea that when you see someone on the street acting weird, people do not just go, oh, maybe he's having a bad day, or maybe he just, he's just feeling a bit angry today. They quickly go, oh, he's crazy. And it's like, you can't do that. You can't just quickly assume that the person's crazy. You can stay away from them because you're not obliged to have to go up to them and acknowledge them. But when they do one crazy thing or they're upset, you know, or they shout at one person that, you know, they obviously had a problem with, or they, they'll, like, I remember someone told me, like, some people, I had a friend and she said to me, I once saw someone picking trash up on the street and I thought they were crazy. And I was like, maybe they're just like, you know, helping the community out. But it's weird picking up litter. And I'm like, you know, maybe they're just helping the community out. You know what I mean? Like, they might be doing it for a project. They might be collecting bottles. Like, you don't actually know. Like, you don't know. You're just assuming.
View on madness as a whole. The practice of reject.
There's a simplistic view of it. I feel like there's one view and that's what everyone has. If you do anything out of the madness, you are automatically ostracized from society to the point where you are automatically seen as like a illegitimate person. You're automatically seen as like someone who is not trustworthy and cannot work or do anything out of like anything amazing.
Rejecting those who think differently has deprived people of the ability to interact with outsiders. And this fracture in dialogue leaves many people unable to talk about or even really comprehend the underclass's problems and the reasonings for their.
And the sad thing is, when you see that, they quickly isolate. And when people on social media isolate, so let's say like a famous celebrity is like, all these like crazy batshit people need to stop walking down the street, all these crackheads. And then you see people opening up about their drug addictions to other people and like they meet. Some people are quick to go, actually, I don't want to be involved with you. That's kind of weird. Like, why would you have a drug addiction? Well, you know, he has a drug addiction because he has a drug addiction and he's opening up with you. But you're kind of weird. Like, why would you have that? That's crazy.
Disillusionment. And this of course only leads to more loneliness and isolation for those living on the outskirts of society. Which is why the Joker holds a mirror on how a society that shames young men is in fact responsible for the consequences that this brings. A hollow, meaningless, synthetic.
And this is a sad thing. It only matters when people die or when people go and they hurt other people. That's when they're like, oh, he was going through a sad life. And you just think, no, you shouldn't think like that. Like, it shouldn't be like, oh, he was going through a sad life. He woke up one day and life was just not going to plan. He had all these dreams and ambitions, and you know, when he was younger, that's when people actually step in and be like, you know, he was suffering. When like they go through so much hell and they fall apart, that's when people go, you know, if I was them, I would be suffering too. But when they need the help and they need to be like helped by people and they're going through like the breakdown, they don't want to help.
Pathetic culture that shows nothing but vicious hostility towards true expression and authenticity. And this lack of effective public dialogue is clear in Joker. Arthur is constrained by the clinical apparatus of therapy that has become his only place of solace from society. In his first scene with the therapist, it's clear that Arthur isn't getting any actual help from the system. He still feels awful all the time, but modern society destroys. Arthur has no one to talk to or any way to meaningfully express himself, and it's tearing him apart. But as Foucault said, there's no dialogue with people on the fringes anymore, and that is what causes growing resentment in society, when huge swaths of men are completely detached from the world around them and pushed into the shadows. We see this in the next scene, when Arthur takes his anger out on a nearby dumpster by violently kicking it on his way.
Hannah said her supermarket's matching Aldi.
Really?
It could be like punching a wall. That's like the starting point of resentment.
Stop.
Like taking your anger
There's
out on
only
the
one
wall,
supermarket where every price is matched with
or
Aldi.
picking
We'll let you
a
guess
bench,
which.
or breaking a vase that you saw on
They said
the
wizardry
floor,
only appears
or
in fairy
breaking
tales.
public,
But just
breaking public equipment, like public damages, like the graffitiing. That can also be a way of taking out your anger.
as Arthur is about to take the elevator up to his room, he stops the door from closing after a woman asks him to hold it. Introducing herself as Sophie, she's joined by her young daughter, and she begins making small talk with Arthur. This comes as a shock to him, and Arthur has trouble maintaining composure. After Sophie makes some joking notions about the awful state of their building, she mimes shooting herself in the head, and this little hand motion sends Arthur head over heels for her. You see, so far in the movie, Arthur's only meaningful connection has been with his mother, so when a woman shows him some genuine affection or at least treats him like a human being, this 180 makes Arthur immediately fall for her. But he isn't exactly in love with Sophie, since he barely knows her. Instead, Arthur is in love with the idea of what she could be. In Arthur's mind, Sophie is an image of perfection and safety rather than an actual person. She's the escape from Arthur's horrible dystopian life, and yet due to his anxieties, Arthur hedges, and like almost all pleasures, they end up leaving you feel empty inside. You see, all the factors that we've talked about contribute to the massive problem of loneliness, and this feeling gives way to a bit
I get what he's saying about how OnlyFans is like bad in the terms of people are like, they look at women and they have an ideal type of women they're looking for. That's OnlyFans, cool, because people go on OnlyFans, but I don't think everyone is like that. I feel like OnlyFans is only for a selection of people. Not everyone uses OnlyFans. Like, I don't know a lot of guys that openly say that they use OnlyFans, and I don't think they actually do. And even if they did, I don't think they actually look at OnlyFans to describe what they want from women. I think OnlyFans is just a little like guideline of what they want, because whenever I go out and I see people like, you know, and they're with their girlfriends, they don't look like OnlyFans girls, or they don't act like, you know, woo girls. They kind of act like really normal people. And OnlyFans is just one section of the internet. I feel like by blaming OnlyFans and saying OnlyFans like is a big way of people saying like that's what they look for a woman and fantasizing and what a woman should be like, it's not true, because OnlyFans is basically people in front of a camera. So if you can't watch OnlyFans, then you can't watch YouTube. If you can't watch YouTube, then you can't watch Netflix. If you can't watch Netflix, then you can't watch a movie, because these women that are on the internet and on the movies that you watch on the screen, they are playing a character for you to fall in love with. So they're obviously not going to be that person to you.
A hatred for the society that isolated them. And this is yet another way that resentment has been brewing in our society. Things like OnlyFans only compound the problem for these lonely men. And matched in the real world, Arthur also seeks a parasocial relationship with Sophie. And these clowns aren't just thugs. They're a generation of frustration, anxiety, agitation, and repulsion to modernity's supposedly high standard of living. A standard of living that solely comprises of a violent and complex stimulation of sense at every second of the day, causing the need.
I think that's kind of really a powerful thought. When people are frustrated, it can really be obvious when people are at their breaking point. And I think with society, as soon as people start to see an angry part of society that they don't like, they're quick to protest. They're quickly to follow someone else's action and go, actually, that was not right, I don't agree with that. And they're quick to go and do their own form of protesting and say, well, I think that we should all have the right to do what we need to do to survive. Why is it only one group of people impacting or, you know, getting the most out of the society that they're living in? And it's very important to know that as soon as they start to see some sort of hope or some sort of change or some sort of like, you know, maybe we can have a better life, they quickly jump onto the idea of protesting against or writing, kind of like the rights of the early years, the early 2000s, you know. And there's still protests that happen every day, like LGBTQ community protesting for equal rights, giving support for the LGBTQIA community. And then you have women's right protest to help women in their field of work, you know, giving them support, the need that they need. Because remember, there's still issues out there that still affect people every day. Then you have the people who are protesting against, you know, the working conditions of the hospital. You have those people protesting. Then you have the people protesting against the working conditions of their workplaces too. And it's often when they see that, okay, when they see like, oh, maybe this life that we're living is just terrible. Maybe we have a chance to open up about the situation that we have, especially when they see other people suffering, or one person comes forth and says, I'm struggling to feed my family, and then other people realize, yeah, I'm struggling to feed my family too, and they realize they can't hide it. They can't speak up about it because it is a big issue. If you can't feed your family efficiently and you're doing so much work, why are you getting paid for less,
Need for more and more violent stimulation, a generation that craves distraction, as many distractions as can be crammed into the shortest possible time, all while living a life completely isolated from everyone, with no attachment to their labour or society. It's becoming a simple reality for millions of these people that there is
I don't think anyone's really completely detached from other people. I think there's only a selection of few people that are completely detached from society as a whole. I think no one in this society that works, that has a job, that goes to education, any form of education, goes out for fresh air, who goes shopping, is completely detached from the world that they live in. That no one is really completely detached. And I think that's the error in what he's saying, is no one's completely detached. Only a few people are completely detached. And those people you would obviously know from the get-go when they're detached, when they don't recognize things, or they don't know social norms, or they don't know what other people are saying, or languages, or they don't actually connect with people, understand what people are saying to them. That's how you know very fast that they are detached from society. But often the many people that are around us are not detached, because that you have to somehow socialize with someone. You're gonna see a shopkeeper and they're gonna ask you, do you want a bag? And you're obviously gonna talk to the person about a bag. You're not gonna be completely detached, like, you know what I mean? Like, when you're looking for something that you want to eat, you're not gonna be completely detached. Like, there's social groups that you can join online. Like, there's chat groups that you can join. Like, I feel like there's no way you can be completely detached from people unless you are being made forcibly to be detached from people. That's the dangerous. When you're forcibly being detached from people around you, that's when it becomes dangerous. In Arthur's case, that is dangerous, and we have to acknowledge that him being detached he's not just randomly detached, he's not randomly isolated. There may be people around him that may think he's weird, especially there's like a lot of issues with him. He has a mental health disorder, he has like a laughing condition. So people who see him laughing, they may think, they might tell their friends, like, don't talk to him, he's quite weird. And that's how you detach someone from the world that they're living.
There's no longer a belief in the society that they live in. The binding traditions of the society they live in are no longer enough to fortify the destruction of their community and happiness, and so the only way out of their despair requires a complete revolution. Which leads us on to the third step of Western revolution: social unrest. You see, when a society and its habitats become too harsh, it pushes more and more people out of it, and when the loneliness and resentment get to be too much for people to handle, cracks in the society start to show, and the next scene of Joker gives us an insight into what causes this. The reason why is clear. He has found proof from the chaos itself that he created. His first meaningful impact on society wasn't done by Arthur, but by this new Joker. And this process also happens in the real world every day in the form of political radicalization. Men who have nothing to live for fall into an existential crisis, and often the solution they find is ideology, whether that be incelism or political extremism. But all of these ideologies
I think that's true. Like, I think it's not even only men alone, but people in general, as soon as they lose the kind of the sight that they have about society that they're living in, they join some sort of group that makes them feel some sort of belonging, and that's the dangerousness of being alone. You will try and find someone that you connect with on a level where they understand your needs, they understand what you're going through, and you may feel this kind of unrest where you feel like you might need to connect with other people to get the help that you need. And that is very dangerous, because some groups are not truthful about their doctrination. Some groups don't actually acknowledge that many of these people are unwell, or you know, they're looking for a group to kind of lean on. So they join that group thinking, okay, I've got a place to lean on, and they obviously know what life is about. They care about me. They want to feed me. They want to be my friend, but they may not have the best interest at heart because they're only there to fight their own political opinion.
Or for a destructive outlet for resentment disguised as a belief system. And if enough people get swept up by this new ideology, and laying him gently on the hood of the car, after a few seconds Arthur gazes round at the massive crowd that has formed. It's at this
I feel like he's hallucinated this whole thing, like he's like this kind of like superhero now, because he's so used to being seen as a villain. He's now hallucinated cheap viewers, sorry. He's now hallucinated a life where literally, yeah, he's now hallucinated a life where what's that? I don't even know. I'm probably gonna have to block him. I don't even know. Don't even press that link. It could be like a fucking, yeah, you gotta be careful because some links are so dangerous. Like some links have like what's it called, viruses on them, and they can hack your computer. Okay, won't press it, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm gonna ban them because, yeah, you got to be really careful because some people, they put viruses so they can hack your bank details. You just got to be really careful. It's currently not banned from this channel. What? Why is he not banned? Oh, I unbanned him, sorry. Ban. Sorry, I actually unbanned him again. Yeah, banned him, sorry about that. Yeah, but I feel like he hallucinated it because he's so used to seeing everyone see him as like a really like bad person and being treated like a hated person, that finally he's like, oh, I'm amazing, I'm cool, everyone loves me, but they don't.
moment that Arthur no longer exists. His new identity, his new belief, his new hope for a better world has begun, and so he starts dancing in a similar fashion to before, as he draws a smile with blood across his mouth, and the crowd cheers seeing their messiah.
So obviously that was a quick way of knowing that it was a hallucination, because as soon as he woke up from that hallucination, he's actually somewhere else, which is he was actually taken straight from that time, that place where he was, you know, he killed the man at the TV show, Murray. As soon as he killed the man, he was taken from there. He must have been escorted out by the police, arrested, put into handcuffs, then taken straight to the police station, questioned, and obviously due to his mental state, they were quick to put him in the mental asylum.
He's been telling a psychologist his story and begins laughing once it's all said and done. The interrogator wants to know what's so funny, but Arthur responds that she just wouldn't get it. Moments later, he steps out of the room, and the film ends on a hallway shot of Arthur walking towards a window filled with light, leaving behind a trail of bloody footprints in his wake. Just like in Joker, tragedy is all that awaits if we see this twisted course of events in our own world. Something must be done to stop these similar processes in their tracks, otherwise Joker could turn from a mere warning to a prophetic image of the future.
And sadly, we have seen them show this prophetic warning of the future, which is so annoying because this prophetic warning of the future is actually so dangerous that we all know that this could be the actual problem that we have. Because we have seen instances where people have done that, they have seek revenge due to the unhappy lives that they're living.